The Roaring Twenties, a decade of flappers, jazz, and economic prosperity. But beneath the glittering surface of speakeasies and Art Deco skylines, a darker world festered. This was an era of unprecedented social change, and with it came a wave of crime that was as shocking as it was sensational. Today, we're peeling back the gilded wallpaper to expose some of the most evil crimes from the 1920s. These aren't just tales of bootleggers and mobsters, they're stories of greed, betrayal, and cold-blooded murder that captivated and terrified a nation. Let's start with a case that became a media frenzy, blurring the lines between justice and public spectacle. The year is 1924, Chicago. To brilliant, wealthy, and arrogant law students, Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb decided they were going to commit the perfect crime. Their victim was 14-year-old Bobby Franks, a cousin of Loeb's. Why him? There was no real motive, no revenge, no ransom demand they actually intended to collect. They simply wanted to prove their intellectual superiority by getting away with murder. They lured Bobby into a rented car, killed him, and then dumped his body in a culvert. To make it look like a kidnapping, they sent a ransom note, but their plan quickly unraveled. A crucial piece of evidence, a unique pair of eyeglasses dropped near the crime scene, was traced back to Nathan Leopold. Their perfect crime was anything but. The subsequent trial became a national obsession, a trial of the century. Their famous lawyer, Clarence Darrow, argued against the death penalty, delivering a legendary 12-hour closing argument about the nature of humanity and punishment. He saved them from execution, but they were sentenced to life plus 99 years. The case of Leopold and Loeb became a chilling reminder that evil can lurk behind the most privileged and educated of facades. It was a crime born not of passion or need, but of a horrifyingly detached intellectual arrogance. Now, let's travel to the dusty plains of Oklahoma, where a series of murders revealed a conspiracy so vast and sinister it led to the birth of the modern FBI. In the early 1920s, the Osage Nation were, per capita, the richest people in the world. Oil had been discovered on their reservation land, and they received royalties that made them millionaires. But this newfound wealth brought a curse. A systematic campaign of murder began, targeting wealthy Osage individuals, one by one. It was dubbed the Reign of Terror. People would be shot, poisoned, or blown up in their homes. Initially, local law enforcement was either corrupt or incompetent, and the deaths were often written off as accidents or suicides. Osage families who tried to investigate were themselves targeted. The conspiracy was chillingly intimate. Many of the perpetrators were white men who had married into Osage families, positioning themselves to inherit the oil rights or head rights upon their spouse's death. One of the masterminds was William Hale, a powerful local cattleman who called himself the King of the Osage Hills. He presented himself as a friend to the Osage people while secretly orchestrating their murders. The case became so notorious that the fledgling Bureau of Investigation, later the FBI, sent a team of undercover agents to solve the crimes. It was one of their first major homicide investigations. The agents, led by Tom White, slowly unraveled the web of greed and murder spun by Hale and his accomplices. The Osage murders exposed a horrifying story of racial injustice and systematic exploitation, a truly evil plot to steal wealth by eliminating an entire group of people. From a conspiracy of greed, we turn to a story of passion, betrayal, and a very loud trial. The year is 1927, Queens, New York. A corset salesman named Albert Snyder is found dead in his home, seemingly the victim of a burglary gone wrong. His wife, Ruth Snyder, told a dramatic story of being attacked by a large, mustachioed intruder. But her story had holes, and the police were suspicious. The so-called burglar had left behind valuable items and only took things that were insured. As they dug deeper, the investigation led them to Ruth's secret lover, a married corset salesman named Judd Gray. It turned out Ruth and Judd had been plotting Albert's murder for months. They had tried and failed 7 times before finally succeeding. Their plan was clumsy and brutal. They garroted Albert with picture wire, chloroformed him, and then staged the scene to look like a robbery. Once caught, they immediately turned on each other, each blaming the other for the crime. The press had a field day, dubbing Ruth the Blonde Borgia and the Vampire Wife. The trial was a media circus. Ruth was portrayed as a cold, calculating femme fatale, while Judd was seen as her weak-willed puppet. The public couldn't get enough of the sordid details of their affair and the gruesome murder. Both were found guilty and sentenced to death by electric chair. Ruth Snyder's execution at Sing Sing prison in 1928 became infamous. A Chicago Tribune photographer smuggled a miniature camera strapped to his ankle and snapped a photo at the exact moment the electricity surged through her body. The blurry, shocking image was splashed across the front page under the headline "Dead." It was a sensational end to a sensational crime, a dark tale of suburban desire turned deadly. Our final story takes us into the mind of one of America's most disturbing serial killers, a man known as the Gray Man, the werewolf of Hysteria, and the Brooklyn Vampire. His name was Albert Fish. While many of his most notorious crimes occurred throughout the 20s and 30s, his capture in the 1930s revealed a horrifying history. In 1928, a 10-year-old girl named Grace Budd vanished from her family's New York City apartment. She was last seen with an elderly, grandfatherly man who called himself Frank Howard. This man had answered an ad her brother had placed for farm work. He charmed his way into the family's home and got permission to take young Grace to a supposed children's party. She was never seen alive again. For years, the case went cold. Then, 6 years later, Grace's mother received a chilling, anonymous letter. The letter described, in graphic and horrifying detail, what had happened to her daughter. The writer claimed he had taken her to an abandoned house, killed her, and then cannibalized her body over a period of 9 days. The letter was filled with obscene details that revealed the author's deeply disturbed mind. Police were able to trace the stationery used for the letter, which ultimately led them to Albert Fish. When he was arrested, Fish calmly confessed not only to the murder of Grace Budd, but to countless other acts of torture and murder against children, stretching back decades. He was a monster hiding in plain sight, a seemingly gentle old man who was, in reality, a predator of the most evil kind. His trial exposed a life of unimaginable depravity. The crimes of Albert Fish are a stark reminder that the most terrifying monsters are often the ones who look just like us. The 1920s was a decade of extremes of dazzling progress and profound darkness. These crimes, from the arrogant plotting of Leopold and Loeb to the systematic greed of the Osage murders, the desperate passion of Ruth Snyder, and the pure evil of Albert Fish, show us the sinister underbelly of the jazz age. They are more than just old headlines. They are cautionary tales that continue to fascinate and horrify us a century later. They reveal timeless truths about the human capacity for greed, jealousy, and cruelty. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the dark side of the Roaring Twenties. If you found this exploration of history's shadows as compelling as we did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the past. Let us know in the comments which case you found the most shocking. Until next time, stay curious.